I don't want sympathy. I just want someone to tell me that I'm not crazy. I've run through every explanation. Exhaustion, hallucination, and even gas exposure. But nothing adds up. I know what I saw in that cave. I know what we heard and, more importantly, what we felt. You can say I'm mistaken, that's fine. Just don't tell me it wasn't real. It was my friend Zoe's idea. She's always had a reckless streak. Urban exploring, off-trail hiking, and night diving. I usually talk her down, but this time, I don't know. Something about the way she described the cave, it made me curious. It's not even on any of the maps, she said. A guy on the geology forum posted coordinates before his account went dead. Said the wind didn't blow the same way down there. I should have said no. We left early, just 2 backpacks, headlamps, spare batteries, and a rope line. No cell signal where we were going. The cave entrance was narrow, more of a seam in the rock than a mouth. You had to slide in sideways, between slabs of limestone to even reach the chamber. The inside was colder than it should have been. Still air, like nothing moved in or out. Zoe made a joke about ancient burial grounds, and I didn't laugh. There was a dampness to the walls, like sweat, not moisture. The rock was wrong too. It looked like it had been scored with something. Thin, deep gouges, inconsistent in pattern. Not pickaxe marks, not natural erosion. It looked almost deliberate. We went deeper. The light from the surface was long gone, and all we had was the thin, white cone of our headlamps. The passage narrowed, then opened into a wide chamber. I remember thinking the ceiling looked too high for how far we'd gone down, like we were standing in a space that shouldn't exist. Zoe moved ahead of me, scanning the walls, and that's when we found it. A bundle of bones tied with what looked like human hair, hanging from the ceiling by a crude length of rope. No carvings and no symbols, just a mass of bones gently swaying. I whispered, "Zoe, I don't think this is abandoned." She didn't respond right away, and when she finally did, her voice was hollow. "This wasn't here in the photos." Photos? She hadn't mentioned any pictures before. I didn't ask. I was honestly too focused on the smell that was suddenly thick in the air. Like meat left in the sun, but a bit sweeter. That's when I heard it. Something scraping stone. Not close and not far. Somewhere in that massive, impossible chamber with us. I turned and, for a second, I thought I saw something move. Long and thin, almost like a shadow peeled away from the wall and slipped out of sight. Zoe was already backing up. Her face had gone pale beneath the headlamp's glow. I grabbed her arm and whispered, "We need to go, now." She didn't argue. We turned, retraced our steps, but the tunnel didn't look the same. The gouges in the walls were deeper now, fresher, some still wet. Zoe started muttering under her breath. I counted it. I counted the turns. I swear I did." I told her to keep moving, keep the rope line in hand, but when I reached for it, there was nothing. The rope was gone, just a frayed end, cut clean. Something had taken it, and it wasn't done with us yet. Zoe was unraveling. Her breaths were fast and shallow, fogging up the inside of her headlamp lens. I grabbed her by the shoulders, more to steady myself than her. "Hey," I said quietly but firmly. "We need to keep our heads. You counted the turns, right? So think, what's next?" She shook her head, eyes wide. I don't know. I counted them, I swear. 3 right and 2 left, slope downward. But this isn't where we came in." I glanced around. The stone felt tighter somehow, angrier. The air had thickened, like the cave was exhaling slowly, and we were breathing in its rot. That smell was stronger now, clotted, sickly sweet. I listened. There, beneath Zoe's frantic breathing. Breathing. Not hers and not mine. Something deep, rhythmic, a slow drag in and out, not from any one direction, just around us. Embedded in the walls or even beneath them. I shushed her and held my hand out. She went quiet. We both heard it then. Not a growl and not a snarl. Just breath. Like lungs the size of the room, expanding in time with our fear. I scanned the area. There, look, I whispered. About 10 feet up there was a narrow ledge. Natural rock, slanted inward like a lip above the tunnel mouth. If we could get up there, maybe we could get a better view of the layout, or at least feel like we weren't being watched from every direction. I helped Zoe climb first, boosting her from below. Her boots scraped and kicked loose gravel, and I winced with every sound. My turn was harder. My fingers trembled against the sharp stone, my legs aching from the tension and the cold, but I made it. The ledge was wide enough for us to crouch. Our lights reached further up here. That's when I saw it. A shape just outside the cone of our beams. It was too tall. That was my first thought. Not like a person, like someone had been stretched upright. Arms long, joints sharp, body so thin you could see where the ribs nearly pierced the skin. Its back was turned. Pale, scabbed flesh stretched tight over its frame. Its head scraped the ceiling. It was listening. One long arm curled out and touched the wall, claw tips dragging across it gently, like it was feeling vibrations through the stone. My breath caught. It froze. No sound and no movement. Then its head twisted, the neck bending like a broken branch, until one sunken pupilless socket faced our direction. It didn't blink and it didn't move. Zoe made a noise, something between a whimper and a choked breath, and I grabbed her mouth just in time. The thing tilted its head, its other hand flexed, claws like carved antler tips scraped together. Click, click, click. Then it sank back into the dark, not walking, melting. The way it moved made me feel wrong inside, like gravity didn't apply to it the same way. I didn't realize I was crying until I tasted salt. We sat there for what felt like an hour. Maybe it was minutes. Time felt fake down there. Zoe finally leaned in. Her voice was so quiet I barely heard her. I don't think we found the cave. I think it wanted us to find it. That thought didn't feel paranoid. It felt true. The walls were grooved. The air was still. The bones were arranged. This wasn't some forgotten tunnel. It was a trap, baited with something only the desperate or curious would follow. I pulled out the backup flashlight and checked our gear. Still had a flare, half a bottle of water, no rope, one knife. We couldn't stay up here. Whatever that thing was, it knew now. We had to move. I started to climb back down when I saw something strange in the rock below. Thin lines in the stone that looked too symmetrical, almost like script. Not in English and not in anything I recognized. Dozens of little carvings etched into the ledge just below where we sat. Each one a perfect copy of the last. Zoe saw them too. That looks like the markings near the... She stopped herself. Near the bone bundle. We both knew it. Below us, the breathing started again. But this time, it wasn't steady. It was excited. I told Zoe to stay. Don't move. Don't make any noise. Don't shine your light unless you hear me call for you. She didn't argue. She nodded with that hollow, hunted look. Her hands gripped the rock until her knuckles went white. I climbed down the ledge and slipped into the corridor on the far side. One we hadn't seen before. It felt older than the rest. The walls here were darker, like the stone itself had been scorched. Not from fire, but from time. Or something older than time. My boots crunched something brittle beneath them, and I didn't look down. The deeper I moved, the warmer it got. Not physically, that's not the right word. It was like the space remembered heat, a stale decaying warmth that stuck to your skin like grease. I turned a corner and found another chamber. This one was smaller, oval-shaped. The walls weren't stone anymore, at least not naturally. They were carved into reliefs, figures I didn't recognize, arranged in circles, each with their head bent toward the center. In the middle of the room there was a pit. I don't know how deep it went. My light couldn't reach the bottom, but I could hear it. Something moving down there. Slow, wet, rhythmic. It didn't echo. I backed out before whatever was down there noticed me. When I returned to the ledge, Zoe was gone. No blood, no drag marks, no scuffle. She was just gone. Except there was a new bone bundle hanging from the rock just below where we had been sitting. Fresh. Not skeletal, not cleaned. Something wet still clung to the twine holding it together. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I couldn't. My body locked up. My mind flooded with one thought that repeated over and over. It took her. My flashlight flickered, not out, just dimmed. The way a dying memory does in the back of your mind when something older pushes forward. I ran. I don't remember the path I took, only that the cave shifted around me. The same hallway split and doubled back. I saw my own footprints over and over again. And then I didn't. There were no footprints, no dust, just smooth stone as if nothing, and no one, had ever walked there before. When I finally collapsed, I was staring up at a patch of sky. Pale morning light filtered through a hole barely large enough to crawl through. Roots hung like fingers. I pulled myself out with everything I had left. I don't remember how I got back to the car, or even how I drove. I woke up in my apartment 2 days later, dehydrated and covered in scrapes. Zoe's things were still in the trunk. She's never been reported missing. No records, no digital footprint. It's like she was erased the moment we stepped into that place. Except, yesterday, someone slid something under my door. A strip of pale leather, tied around a bundle of hair. Zoe's hair. I recognized the braid. There were markings burned into that leather, same as the carvings in that cave. I've spent hours trying to match them to anything. Runic scripts, tribal symbology, ancient languages, nothing matches exactly. But one symbol keeps showing up. It looks like a figure bent backward over a ring of thorns. Sometimes it's drawn with antlers, sometimes it has no face, and sometimes it looks like it's smiling. I'm not posting this for clout. I don't care if anyone believes me. I'm posting it because I found something else burned into the other side of the leather. Not in ancient script, but in English. 5 words. You were meant to watch. I haven't slept since, and I'm not sure what I should do. Because sometimes, just before dawn, I hear breathing in the walls. This happened a few years back. I was doing long haul, mostly cross-country routes, the kind that take you through vast stretches of nothing. You know the ones, where the radio turns to static for hours, and the only sign of life is the occasional pair of headlights going the other way, miles apart. I was young and eager for the miles, the money. I didn't mind the solitude, or so I thought. The route I was on took me across a long, desolate stretch of highway that ran between the borders of 2 large, governmental territories. I don't want to say exactly where, but think big, empty spaces, lots of trees, and not much else. It was notorious among drivers for being a dead zone. No signal, no towns for 100 miles on either side, and prone to weird weather. Most guys tried to hit it during daylight, but schedules are schedules. Mine had me crossing it deep in the night. I remember the feeling, utter blackness outside the sweep of my headlights. The kind of dark that feels like it's pressing in on the cab. The only sounds were the drone of the diesel engine, and the hiss of the air brakes now and then. and the rhythmic thrum of the tires on asphalt. Hypnotic. Too hypnotic. I'd been driving for about 10 hours with a short break a few states back. Coffee was wearing off. The dashboard lights were a dull green glow, comforting in a way, but also making the darkness outside seem even more absolute. My eyelids felt like they had lead weights attached. You fight it, you know? Slap your face, roll down the window for a blast of cold air, crank up whatever music you can find that hasn't dissolved into static. I was doing all of that. It must have been around 2 or 3 a.m. I was in that weird state where you're not quite asleep, but not fully awake either. Like your brain is running on low power mode. The white lines on the road were starting to blur together, stretching and warping, standard fatigue stuff. I remember blinking hard, trying not to focus. That's when I saw it, or thought I saw it. Just a flicker at the edge of my headlights on the right shoulder of the road. Small, low to the ground. For a split second, I registered a shape, vaguely human-like, and then it was gone, swallowed by the darkness as I passed. My first thought, a deer or a coyote, common enough, but it hadn't moved like an animal, and it had been upright. My brain, sluggish as it was, tried to process it. Too small for an adult and too still for an animal startled by a rig. Then the logical part, the part that was still trying to keep me safe on the road, chimed in. You're tired, seeing things, it happens. And I almost accepted that. I really did. I shook my head and took a swig of lukewarm water from the bottle beside me. I kept my eyes glued to the road ahead. The image, though, it kind of stuck. A small, upright shape, like a child. No way, I told myself. Out here? The middle of nowhere? In the middle of the night? It was impossible. Kids don't just wander around on interterritorial highways. It had to be a trick of the light, a bush. My eyes were playing games. I've seen weirder things born of exhaustion. Shadows that dance and trees that look like figures. It's part of the job when you're pushing limits. I drove for maybe another 5 to 10 seconds, the image fading, my rational mind starting to win. Just a figment. Then I glanced at my passenger side mirror, a habit, always checking, and my blood went cold. Not just cold, it felt like it turned to slush. There, illuminated faintly by the red glow of my trailer lights, receding into the distance, was the reflection of a small figure, standing on the shoulder of the road, exactly where I thought I had seen something. It wasn't a bush. It wasn't a shadow. It was small, and it was definitely standing there, unmoving, as my truck pulled further and further away. My heart started hammering against my ribs. This wasn't fatigue. This was real. There was someone, something back there, and it looked tiny. Every instinct screamed at me. Danger. Wrong. Just keep going. But another voice, the one that makes us human, I suppose, whispered something else. A kid? Alone out here? What if they're hurt? Lost? I fought with myself for a few seconds that stretched into an eternity. The image in the mirror was getting smaller and fainter, and if I didn't act now, they'd be lost to the darkness again. God, the thought of leaving a child out here, if that's what it is. Against my better judgment, against the primal urge to just floor it, I made a decision. I slowed the rig, the air brakes hissing like angry snakes, pulled over to the shoulder, the truck groaning in protest. Put on my hazards, their rhythmic flashing cutting into the oppressive blackness. Then, I did what you're never supposed to do with a full trailer on a narrow shoulder. I started to reverse, slowly, carefully, my eyes flicking between the mirrors, trying to keep the trailer straight, trying to relocate that tiny figure. The crunch of gravel under the tires sounded unnaturally loud. It took a minute, maybe 2, but it felt like an hour. The red glow of my taillights eventually washed over the spot again, and there it was. A kid. I stopped the truck so my cab was roughly alongside them, maybe 10 feet away. Switched on the high beams, hoping to get a better look, and also to make myself clearly visible as just a truck and not something else. The kid was small, really small. I'd guess maybe 6 or 7 years old. Hard to tell in the glare. They were just standing there on the very edge of the gravel shoulder, right where the trees began. The woods pressed in close on the stretch of road, tall dark pines and dense undergrowth that looked like a solid black wall just beneath the reach of my lights. The kid wasn't looking at me. They were facing sort of parallel to the road, just walking, slowly, like they were on a stroll, completely oblivious to the massive 18-wheeler that had just pulled up beside them, engine rumbling and lights blazing. They were wearing what looked like pajamas, thin, light-colored pajamas in the chill of night. No coat and no shoes that I could see. My mind reeled. This was wrong on so many different levels. I killed the engine. The sudden silence was almost deafening, amplifying the crickets and the rustle of leaves in the woods from a breeze I couldn't feel in the cab. My heart was still thumping, a weird mix of fear and adrenaline and a dawning sense of responsibility. I rolled down the window. The night air had hit me, cold and damp, carrying the scent of pine and wet earth. "Hey!" I called out. My voice sounded hoarse, too loud in the quiet. "Hey kid!" No response. They just kept walking, one small bare foot in front of the other, at a pace that was taking them absolutely nowhere fast. Their head was down, slightly. I couldn't see their face properly. "Kid, are you okay?" I tried again, louder this time. Slowly, so slowly the kid stopped. They didn't turn their head fully, just sort of angled it at a fraction, enough that I could see a pale silver cheek in the spill of my headlights. Still not looking at me, still ignoring the multi-ton machine idling beside them. A prickle of unease ran down my spine. Not the normal kind of unease. This was deeper, colder. Animals act weird sometimes, but children? A lost kid should be scared, relieved, something. This was nothing. "What are you doing out here all alone?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm and friendly like you're supposed to do with a scared kid, even though this one didn't seem scared at all. "It's the middle of the night." Silence, just the sound of their bare feet scruffing softly on the gravel as they took another step, then another, as if my presence was a minor inconvenience, a background noise they were choosing to ignore. This wasn't right. My internal alarm bells were clanging louder now. My hand hovered near the gear stick. Part of me wanted to slam it into drive and get the hell out of here. But the image of this tiny child, alone, possibly in shock, I couldn't just leave, could I? "Where are your parents?" I pushed my voice a bit sharper than I intended. "Are you lost?" Finally, the kid stopped walking completely. They turned their head just a little more, still not looking directly at my cab, more towards the front of my truck and into the glare of the headlights. I could see their face a bit better now, pale, featureless in the harsh light, like a porcelain doll. Small dark smudges that must have been eyes. No expression. None. Not fear, not sadness, not relief, just blank. An unreadable slate. Then a small voice, thin like the rustle of dry leaves. "Lost." Just that one word. It hung in the air between us. Relief washed over me, quickly followed by a fresh wave of concern. Okay, lost. That's something I can deal with. "Okay, kid, lost is okay. We can fix lost. Where do you live? Where are you going?" The kid finally, slowly, turned their head fully towards my cab, towards me. I still couldn't make out much detail in their face. The angle, the light, something was obscuring it, keeping it at a sort of shadowy vagueness despite the headlights. But I could feel their gaze. It wasn't like a normal kid's look. There was a weight to it, an intensity that was deeply unsettling for such a small form. "Home," the kid said. That same thin, reedy voice. "Trying to get home." "Right," Home. Where is home? I asked, leaning forward a bit, trying to project reassurance. Is it near here? Did you wander off from a campsite? A car? There were no campsites for miles and no broken down cars on the shoulder. I knew that. The kid didn't answer that question directly. Instead, they took a small step towards the truck, then another. My hand tensed on the door handle, ready to open it to offer what? A ride? A shelter? I didn't really know. It's cold out here, I said, stating the obvious. You should get in. We can get you warm, and I can call for help when we get to a spot with signal. And my CB was useless, and just static, and my phone had shown no service for the last hour. The kid stopped about 5 feet from my passenger door, still in that pale, thin, pajama-like outfit, barefoot on the sharp gravel. They should be shivering, crying. They were doing neither. Can you help me? The kid asked. The voice was still small, but there was a different inflection to it now. Less flat, a hint of something else, pleading maybe. Yeah, of course I can help you, I said. That's why I stopped. Where are your parents? How did you get here? The kid tilted their head, a jerky, unnatural little movement. They're waiting. At home. Okay, and where's home? Which direction? I gestured vaguely up and down the empty highway. The kid didn't point down the road. They made a small, subtle gesture with their head. A little nod towards the trees, towards the impenetrable darkness of the woods lining the highway. In there, the kid said. My stomach clenched. In the woods? Your home is in the woods? Lost, the kid repeated, as if that explained everything. Trying to find the path. It's dark. Yeah, it's very dark, I agreed, my eyes scanning the tree line. It looked like a solid wall of black. No sign of any path, any habitation, just dense, old-growth forest. The kind of place you could get lost in for days, even in the daylight. Can you come out? The kid asked. Help me look? It's not far. I just can't see it from here. Every rational thought in my head screamed no. Get out of the truck? In the middle of the night? In the pitch black? With this strange child who wanted me to go into the woods? No, absolutely not. But the kid looked so small. So vulnerable. If there was even a tiny chance they were telling the truth, that their house was just in a little way, and they were generally lost. I don't think that's a good idea, buddy, I said, trying to sound gentle. It's dangerous in there at night, for both of us. Best thing for you is to hop in here with me. We'll drive until we get signal, and then we'll call the police or the rangers. They can help find your home properly. The kid just stood there, that blank, unreadable face fixed on me. But it's just right there, they insisted, their voice a little more insistent now. Just a little way. I can almost see it. If you just step out, the light from your door would help. My skin was crawling. There was something profoundly wrong with this scenario. The way they were trying to coax me out, the lack of normal emotional response, the pajamas, the bare feet, the woods. I looked at the kid, trying to pierce that strange vagueness around their features. My headlights were bright, but it was just like they absorbed the light rather than it reflected. Their eyes, I couldn't really see their eyes, just stark hollows. I really think you should get in the truck, I said, my voice firmer now. It's warmer in here, and we can figure it out together. The kid took another step closer. They were almost at my running board now. Please, they said, that reedy voice again. My leg hurts. I can't walk much further. If you could just help me a little. Just to the path. My internal conflict was raging. My trucker instincts, honed by years of seeing weird stuff and hearing weirder stories at truck stops, were blaring warnings. But the human part, the part that saw a child in distress, was still there, still arguing. I was tired, so damn tired. Maybe I wasn't thinking straight. Maybe this was all some bizarre misunderstanding. I squinted, trying to see past the kid, towards the tree line they'd indicated. Was there a faint trail I was missing? A flicker of light deep in the woods? No, there was nothing. Just blackness. Solid, unyielding blackness. And then I saw it. It wasn't something I saw clearly at first. It was more like an anomaly. A disturbance in the darkness behind the kid. The kid was standing with their back mostly towards the woods, facing my truck. Behind them, the darkness of the forest was absolute. Or it should have been. But there was something connected to them. Something that stretched from the small of their back, from under their thin pajama top, and disappeared into the deeper shadows of the trees. At first I thought it was a trick of the light, a weird shadow cast by my headlights, hitting them at an odd angle. Maybe a rope they're dragging, a piece of clothing snagged on a branch. I leaned forward, trying to get a clearer view. The kid was still talking, their voice a low, persistent murmur. "It's not far, please. Just help me. I'm so cold." But I wasn't really listening to the words anymore. I was focused on that thing behind them. It wasn't a rope, and it wasn't a shadow. It was a tube. A long, dark, thick tube. It seemed to emerge directly from the kid's lower back. Impossibly, seamlessly. It was a dark mat, like a strip of the night itself given form, and it snaked away from the child. Maybe 10, 15 feet before disappearing into the inky blackness between the two thick pine trunks. It wasn't rigid. It seemed to have a slight, almost imperceptible flexibility, like a massive, sluggish umbilical cord made of a shadow. It didn't reflect any light from my headlamps. It just absorbed it. My breath hitched in my throat. My blood, which had been cold before, now felt like it had frozen solid. This wasn't just wrong, this was impossible, unnatural. The kid was still trying to coax me. Are you going to help me? It's just there. You're so close." My voice, when I finally found it, was barely a whisper. I couldn't take my eyes off that appendage. Kid, what is that behind you?" The kid flinched. Not a big movement, just a tiny, almost imperceptible tightening of their small frame. Their head, which had been tilted pleadingly, straightened. The blackness on their face seemed to solidify. "What's what?" they asked, their voice suddenly devoid of that pleading tone. It was flat again, colder. That thing," I stammered, pointing with a shaky finger. "Coming out of your back, going into the woods. What is that?" The kid didn't turn to look. They didn't need to. Their gaze, those dark, unseen eyes, bored into me. "It's nothing," they said. The voice was still small, but it had a new edge to it, a hardness. "You're seeing things. You're tired." They were using my own earlier rationalization against me. "No," I said, my voice gaining a tremor of conviction born of sheer terror. "No, I'm not. I see it. It's right there. It's connected to you." The kid was silent for a long moment. The only sound was the thumping of my own heart, so loud I was sure that they could hear it. The crickets had stopped. The wind seemed to die down. An unnatural stillness fell over the scene. Then, the kid's face began to change. It wasn't a dramatic movie monster transformation. It was far more subtle and far more terrifying. The blackness didn't leave, but it sharpened. The pale skin seemed to tighten over the bones. The areas where the eyes were, those dark smudges, seemed to deepen, to become more shadowed, more intense, and a flicker of something ancient and utterly alien passed across their features. It wasn't human anger. It was something older, colder, and infinitely more patient, now strained to its limit. The air in my cab suddenly felt thick, heavy, hard to breathe. "Just come out of the truck," the kid said, and the voice, oh God, the voice. It wasn't the small, reedy voice of a child anymore. It was deeper, resonant, with a strange, grating undertone like stones grinding together. It was coming from the small frame, but it was impossibly large, impossibly old. It vibrated in my chest. "Come out now." The command was absolute. My hand, which had been hovering near the gear stick, now gripped it like a lifeline. My other hand fumbled for the ignition key, which I'd stupidly left in. What are you?" I choked, staring at the monstrous thing playing dress-up in a child's form. At the dark, pulsating tube that was its anchor to the shadows. The kid's head tilted again, that jerky, unnatural movement, the expression on its face, if you could even call it that. Contempt, like I was a particularly stupid insect it had failed to swat. And then it spoke in that same terrible, resonant, grinding voice. The words it said are burned into my memory, colder than any winter night. "Why?" It rasped, the sound seeming to scrape the inside of my skull. "The fuck are humans smarter now?" That was it. That one sentence, the sheer cosmic frustration in it, the implication of past encounters, of easier prey, the utter alien nature of it. I didn't think, I didn't plan, I reacted. Primal fear, the kind that bypasses all other higher brain function, took over. My hand twisted the key, the diesel engine roared back to life, a sudden violent explosion of sound in the horrifying stillness. The kid, the thing, actually recoiled, a small jerky step back, the expression, that awful, tightened, ancient look, intensified. I slammed the gear stick into drive, my foot stomped on the accelerator, the truck lurched forward, tires spinning on the gravel for a terrifying second before they bit into the asphalt. I didn't look at it, I couldn't. I stared straight ahead, my knuckles white on the steering wheel, the whole cab vibrating around me. The truck surged forward, gaining speed with agonizing slowness. For a horrible moment, I imagined that tube thing whipping out, trying to snag the trailer, to pull me back, to drag me into the woods. I imagined that small figure with its ancient, terrible voice somehow keeping pace. I risked a glance in my driver's side mirror. It was standing there, on the shoulder, unmoving. The headlights of my departing truck cast its small silhouette into sharp relief, and behind it, the dark tube was still visible, a thick, obscene cord snaking back into the endless night of the forest. It didn't seem to be retracting or moving. It just was. The thing didn't pursue, it just stood there and watched me go. And that somehow was almost worse. The sheer confidence, the patience, like it knew there would be others, or maybe it was just annoyed that this particular attempt had failed. I drove. I don't know for how long, I just drove. My foot was welded to the floor, the engine screamed. I watched the speedometer needle climb, far past any legal or safe limit for a rig that size on a road that dark. I just didn't care. The image of that thing, that child shape with its dark umbilical to the woods, and that voice, that awful grinding voice, asking its horrifying question was burned onto the inside of my eyelids. I must have driven for an hour, maybe more, at speeds that should have gotten me killed or at the very least arrested, before the adrenaline started to fade, replaced by a bone-deep shaking exhaustion that was more profound than any fatigue I'd ever known. My hands were trembling so violently I could barely keep the wheel straight. Tears were streaming down my face, not from sadness but from sheer, unadulterated terror and relief. When the first hint of dawn started to gray the eastern sky and my phone finally beeped, indicating a single bar of service, I pulled over at the first wide spot I could find. I practically fell out of the cab, vomiting onto the gravel until there was nothing left but dry heaves. I sat there on the cold ground, shaking, for a long time, watching the sun come up, trying to convince myself that it had been a dream, a hallucination brought on by exhaustion, but I knew it wasn't. The detail of that tube, the voice, the question, you don't hallucinate something that specific, that coherent, that utterly alien. I never reported it. Who would I report it to? What would I say? Officer, I saw a little kid who was actually an ancient cosmic horror tethered to the woods by a nightmare umbilical cord, and it got mad because I didn't want to be its dinner. They'd have me locked up, breathalyzed me, drug tested me, sent me for a psych eval. I finished that run on autopilot, dropped the load, drove my rig back to the yard, and I quit. I told them I was burned out and needed a break. They tried to convince me to stay, offered me different routes and even more pay. I just couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that kid, that tube, those woods. Every dark road felt like a trap. I found a local job, something that keeps me home at night. I don't drive in remote areas anymore if I can help it, especially not at night. I still have nightmares. Sometimes when I'm very tired, driving home late from somewhere, I'll see a flicker at the edge of my vision, on the side of the road, and my heart will try to beat its way out of my chest. I don't know what that thing was. An alien, a demon, something else. Something that doesn't fit into our neat little categories. All I know is that it's out there, and it's patient, and it seems to have learned that its old tricks aren't as effective as it used to be. Why the fuck are humans smarter now? That question haunts me. It implies they weren't always. It implies that once upon a time we were easier. That maybe, just maybe, people like me, tired alone on dark roads, used to step out of the cab when asked and were never seen again. So, if you're ever driving on one of these long, lonely stretches of road, deep in the middle of the night, and you see something you can't explain, maybe just keep driving. Maybe being smarter now means knowing when not to stop, knowing when to ignore that little voice telling you to help, because what's asking for help might not be what it seems. Stay safe out there, and for God's sake, stay on the well-lit roads. Last year, I worked at a laundromat near my parents before I moved away to college. I saw the advert in the window when I was shopping with my dad, and I figured it was an easy way to earn some money. The woman who ran the laundromat interviewed me, and I started the same day, but not before she introduced me to her daughter, who also worked there. She was called Mia, was really petite and really odd. The first time I met her, she immediately said, "Hey, can you do this?" Then she did this weird thing with her eyes that made them vibrate. It's hard to explain. They were like rapidly moving side to side. And the whole time she had this toothy smile on her face. Like it was the most amazing thing in the world. Mia must have been only a year or two younger than me, so still in her teens, but her behavior seemed really juvenile and kind of try-hard. Anyway, I just figured she was trying to break the ice in her own way, so just kind of rolled with it. I got through the rest of the day with just small talk and didn't think too much of it. And I was barely a week or two into the job when I first caught her hiding inside one of the machines. She'd somehow managed to climb up and curl herself up in one of the big tumbler dryers. I wouldn't have even noticed had I not walked past her and heard her giggling inside the drum, scaring the absolute shit out of me. "What are you doing?" I asked, annoyed. She was dicking around whilst I was working my ass off. Her large eyes watching me in the darkness, her legs pressed up against her flat chest. "I'm just cleaning it." "Right. Okay." I literally cleaned the lint out of the machine just this morning, so I didn't buy her bullshit for 1 minute. Anyway, she climbed out of the machine like a creepy gymnast shortly after, earning a few strange glances from some of the customers, but no one was hurt. The next time was worse. About 3 days later, I was helping this young mom set up a load of laundry after her machine broke in her apartment. It was her first time in a laundromat, so she didn't really know where to start, and I had brought her kid along too, although she wasn't doing a very good job of keeping an eye on him. I had just finished walking her through the different powders, prices, and settings when I heard that same eerie, echoing giggle again towards the back of the store, only this time it was followed by a child's laughter. As soon as I heard the sound, I had a weird hitching feeling in my gut. Although I'd only known Mia for about a week, I knew leaving a random kid with her would be like leaving them unattended by an open electrical socket. Anything could happen. "I'm sorry, I'll be right back," I said to the mom, leaving her to load her washing into the machine. Most of the machines in the laundromat were 10-kilogram washing machines. We also had a few larger 18 kilograms and one massive front-loaded 33-kilogram machine, used for washing duvets and the like, which Mia's mom had affectionately christened the Beast. The whole time I'd worked there, I'd never seen it once, yet I found Mia half inside the Beast that day, playing with the kid. Her bottom half was inside the drum, elbows resting on the rubber seal with the door open, as she handed quarters to the boy. She was pulling funny faces and doing that weird thing with her eyes again, making him laugh. The sight made me freeze for a second, wondering what the hell she was playing at. I heard the boy ask her, "What do I do?" "Just close the door," she explained, "and press the big red button." It was only then I realized she was trying to bribe the kid into locking her inside the machine and switching it on. "Mia!" I hissed, hurrying through the maze of machines to confront her. "But what will it do?" the little boy asked. "I'll go for an exciting ride." I finally reached the door and grabbed it, putting an end to this madness. Both Mia and the kid looked annoyed, like I'd interrupt a great game of theirs. "What did you think you were doing?" I snapped. "It was just a little fun." The boy laughed as Mia tousled his hair before he finally scampered off back to his mother, who was still piling dirty underwear into the machine at the other end of the store, oblivious. "Hey, just chill," Mia said, sensing my anger as she slid out of the machine. He wasn't really going to do it. I shook my head and walked away, knowing the kind of shit my own little brother would do for a few dollars. Later that day, Mia's mom came out of her office to check on us, and I thought about ratting Mia out right there and then. But the way she seemed to always dote on her strange daughter, like the sun never shone out of her ass, made me pause. Why would she even believe me over her own flesh and blood? After all, I hadn't even made my first paycheck yet, and I really needed this money. That thought alone ultimately made me decide to just let it slide. I didn't know how much I'd come to regret not bailing right then and there. A few days later, Mia and I were both working the evening shift. It was near closing time, and the place was dead. I was just putting a damp sock in the lost and found basket when she appeared at my shoulder and asked, "Do you like me?" I frowned and focused on the sock. "Yeah, of course." I knew I'd over-egged the lie as soon as it left my mouth, but I wanted to keep the job, at least until college started. "Then why do you never look me in the eye?" I forced myself to turn away from the basket and finally face her. "What do you mean?" "Do you like me?" Her face had a sudden seriousness to it. Whether I'd seen her before, she'd always had the ghost of a smile on her face, and a playful look in her eye, but now she looked almost disappointed in me somehow. My mouth felt dry as I croaked out a yes. "Liar!" I felt my awkwardness switch to fear as she did that weird vibrating thing with her eyes again, only this time they seemed to pull mine in. It was like I had tunnel vision all of a sudden. I tried to take a step back, but my legs felt cut off from the brain. Instead, they followed her as she slowly walked backward towards the row of machines lining the rear wall. Panic set in as I realized she was leading us straight towards the beast. The playful look on her face returned as she sensed my fear. "Don't worry," she said, her voice sounding like it was at the end of a tunnel. "It's just a little fun." Her vibrating eyes never left mine as we reached the huge machine. She opened the door at her back and started to climb in. In my peripheral vision, I saw her arms and legs contort in a nightmarish way. The whole time her head stayed fixed in space, her eyes now the center of my universe. Once she crawled inside, her voice called to me from the darkness of the drum. "Close the door and switch it on. Wash cycle, max spin." I felt powerless to obey. I watched as my arms closed the door and programmed the cycle. The panic inside me rose, making me feel like I'd vomit if I still had control over my own body. As my fingers hovered over the start switch, I held on to the last sliver of hope. The cycle wouldn't start without any money, and I was fresh out of quarters. Yet, as she ordered me to start the machine and the button clunked home, and the door locked without any complaints, I realized she had already preloaded the coins. This sick creep had planned this right from the start. I heard the machine fill with water and felt tears spring into my eyes as I realized I was about to watch someone drown to death in the worst way possible. The drum part filled to her chin, but Mia never took her eyes off me, not even as the machine started to spin. I don't know if it was the trance that she put me in, or if her neck wasn't human, but her head filled that thick glass door and never rotated an inch. I remember watching a nature documentary on birds of prey and how owls remain stable in flight to better track their prey, and Mia's face reminded me exactly of that. Just this pale, big, black-eyed face staring back at me through the glass. She must have forced me to stand like that, watching her drown for a good half hour, because I remember the floor starting to shake as the machine hit its spin cycle. The drum whirled about her horrid face like an optical illusion, pulling me in and never letting me go until finally the sudden surge of power caused the lights overhead to flicker. My eyes lost sight of hers for a moment in the darkness, and I blinked for the first time in what felt like an eternity. The top halves of my eyeballs felt like dry, gritted glass as they finally slid down on the tears collecting below. Suddenly in control of my own body again, I flung a hand over my eyes and looked away. I heard Mia calling to me from the machine, trying to get me to look at her again, but I wasn't falling for it. My brain felt foggy and my legs felt drunk. For a split second, I thought about trying to switch the beast off before realizing it wouldn't work mid-cycle, and it only released the true monster currently trapped inside of it. Whatever Mia was clearly wasn't human, and I dreaded to think of what she had planned next for me. I remember half running, half stumbling past her mom's office, praying it wouldn't open in case she tranced me too. Thankfully, I managed to stifle my sobs and it stayed shut, leaving me to slip out of the laundromat and into the night. I never went back again. When my parents asked me why I quit, I told them I needed to focus my time on my studies instead, which seemed to shut them up. A couple of days ago, I finally mustered up the courage to look at the laundromat on Google Maps Street View. I don't know if I was hoping to see if the store had closed or if anyone had left any bad reviews complaining about the creepy teenage girl that worked there, but I found neither. Instead, all I saw was what looked like another ad for her hire in the window, and the silhouette of a small woman with bleached blonde hair staring out the window. I didn't know if that was Mia or just a bored customer, but I closed that browser window really quick. I'd hoped telling my story on her would somehow help me to process it, but now I've told it, I don't really feel any better. I still can't use the dorm laundromat because every time I close the machine door, I see her creepy owl-like face staring back at me. I'm either hand washing or buying new clothes these days, which is breaking my bank account. I think I need help. Maybe I should see someone.